Natsuru was boring, lonely loser and living a life without any fun, so God changed him to a girl. But this time with some extraordinary superpowers. From no one, his mission is to clap every girl he sees in the world. On his way to school, Natsuru ran into his longtime crush, Sakura. While they were waiting for the bus, Natsuru noticed his bracelet glowing. He suddenly remembered that his stuffed spirit guide had told him this meant he was about to transform into a girl. Just as he was trying to think of a reason to leave before Sakura found out, someone fired a shot at them. The shooter, a redhead bitch, told Natsuru to make his last wish because she was going to take him out with a bang. Before she could take the shot, Natsuru pulled a Houdini and vanished as a bus passed between them. Sakura was left wondering where he had gone, while Natsuru reappeared on another street, undergoing his transformation. As soon as he finished transforming, he continued running, but bullets from the redhead stopped him in his tracks. Natsuru demanded to know why she wanted to end his lifelong dream of becoming a drag queen. The girl revealed they were both Kämpfers and started shooting at him again, forcing him to climb a traffic light. Impressed by his agility, she asked for his name. After he introduced himself, she told him her name was Akane Mishima. She then aimed to shoot him again, but just then, Sakura came running down the street, looking for Natsuru. Annoyed by the interruption, Akane turned her gun on Sakura. This triggered Natsuru's firebending powers, and he shot fireballs at Akane. After the smoke cleared, Akane commented on Natsuru being a Zober type, but he had no clue what she meant. Having daydreamed through German class, she aimed her gun at him again, but Natsuru noticed the traffic light pole was about to fall on her, so he moved her out of the way just in time. He ended up in heaven by cushioning her fall, becoming her unexpected pillow. Since Natsuru's female form had perfect highway, if you know guys what the highway I was talking about, Akane found herself quite comfortable on top of him. Not enjoying the situation at all, Natsuru squirmed like a fish out of water until she finally got off him. Too proud to express any gratitude for saving her, she made sure to kick him before leaving. Once she was gone, Sakura came over and asked if he was okay. Embarrassed, Natsuru smiled awkwardly and took off running. Later at school, a classmate told Natsuru that a girl had been asking about him. Natsuru eagerly asked if it was Sakura, but his friend laughed and said if one of the popular girls was looking for someone like him, the other guys would definitely be out for his head. However, his classmate, a bit of a sock enthusiast, admitted that if the student council president ever spoke to him in a degrading way, he would die a happy man. When Natsuru finally stepped out of the classroom to see who was looking for him, he was surprised to find a shy, brown-haired girl with glasses waiting in front of his class. Curious, he asked how she managed to get to the boys' side of the school since their classes were separate. She explained that as a librarian, she had a special pass allowing her access. When he asked for her name, she told him she was Mishima. Natsuru nearly had a heart attack, struggling to believe that the foul-mouthed girl who had tried to eliminate him that morning was now standing before him, shy and struggling to speak. In the end, they headed to the library, the only place where boys and girls could interact without getting into trouble. There, Akane explained that whenever she transformed, her personality changed as well. She apologized for attacking him and saying all those nasty things. She then showed him her bracelet and explained that since they had the same color, they were on the same team. Their enemies had red bracelets. When Natsuru asked how she knew this, she said her stuffed rabbit had told her everything after she became a Kämpfer. The rabbit had explained that there were 3 types of weapons a Kämpfer could use. The first was a gun, which Akane used, the second was magic, known as Zabber, which Natsuru used, and the third was a sword, simply called sword. After explaining everything, Natsuru asked how long she had been a Kämpfer. She replied that it had been 6 months since her first transformation. The next day at school, he met Akane in the library and shared what Sakura had asked him to do. Akane advised him to gently reject her advances, saying it was the best way to stop Sakura from getting closer to his female form. While they were talking, Akane suddenly transformed and pointed her gun at Natsuru's neck. This took him by surprise, and as he tried to understand why she transformed, they were suddenly attacked by a short-type weapon. Akane told Natsuru to escape, but when the enemy targeted her again, he returned to save her. As she was falling, Akane mentioned they didn't know the enemy's location, so Natsuru needed to be the bait and lure them out. He followed her plan, but the enemy still aimed for Akane, who was hiding behind a bookshelf. The shelf suddenly broke apart, and Akane saw Sakura behind it, assuming she was the attacker. Akane drew her gun and fired at Sakura, but Natsuru bumped into her, causing her to miss. The shock made Sakura pass out, but they couldn't attend to her since they were immediately attacked again. Natsuru then realized that Sakura wasn't the attacker because they were still being targeted. The attack stopped when the school bell rang for class to start. Akane went to class, leaving Natsuru to take care of Sakura alone. It is not what you are thinking, guys, but he carried her on his back, and as soon as she made contact, she felt in his arms, almost thinks she is in heaven. She lost in his pervy thoughts. He then took Sakura to the girls' side of the school and got her settled in the clinic bed. That evening, after getting home, he let Harakiri know about the enemy Kämpfer who had attacked him with a cane at school. He mentioned that she was incredibly strong. Natsuru then asked if there were any male Kämpfer, and Harakiri explained that only females could be Kämpfer, which is why Natsuru had transformed into a girl. This made Natsuru insist that Harakiri must have made a mistake when making the contract with him. However, the one-eyed menace explained that it was the will of the moderators, and they had decided it that way. He also informed Natsuru that if one Kämpfer had already appeared, more would likely follow, making Natsuru realize that the enemy Kämpfer was probably a student at his school. The next day at school, the student council president, Shizuku, called Akane and Natsuru to her office to ask them about the incident in the library. They told her they didn't know who was responsible and even denied being there at the time. But Shizuku made it clear she could see through their lies. After they left her office, Sakura approached them and asked Natsuru when he would introduce her to the mysterious girl who saved her. Knowing things could get complicated if she found out the truth, Natsuru promised to introduce them the next day after school. Sakura happily thanked him and left, but Natsuru didn't share her excitement. Noticing this, Akane asked if he was okay. Instead of responding, he invited her to come over to his place after school, mentioning his parents wouldn't be home. I know, guys, what you are thinking about. Natsuru want to clap all night. Hearing this made Akane imagine they were going so much fun night. Later, at Natsuru's house, Akane nervously glanced around his room. When he entered, he asked why she seemed so stiff. Of course, she misinterpreted and panicked, falling onto the bed. Lying there, acting like the inexperienced girl she was, she nervously asked Natsuru to be gentle. But Natsuru, being completely oblivious, didn't understand what she meant. He then sat next to her on the bed and explained that he needed her advice on how to handle Sakura's request. Realizing he had no romantic intentions, Akane quickly got off the bed and scolded him for agreeing to introduce Sakura to his female self. However, her inner voice and the black rabbit suggested he should just go ahead and date Sakura. Akane told them not to put such ideas in his head, so they suggested that Natsuru make Sakura dislike him so she wouldn't want to meet his female self anymore. The Black Bunny even joked about ripping Sakura's skirt off to speed things up. But Akane quickly protested, saying it was a terrible idea because Sakura might actually enjoy that kind of rough behavior. This made Natsuru ask if Akane was into that sort of thing. But instead of a straightforward answer, she blushed furiously and said it depended on the situation. The next day after school, Natsuru was trying to avoid meeting Sakura, but Akane encouraged him and told him to do the silly dance they had suggested the day before. She then transformed into her Kämpfer form so she could help Natsuru transform since he still couldn't control it himself. Once his transformation was complete, she sent him off with a playful smack on his butt and reminded him to try his best to make Sakura hate him. When Sakura noticed Natsuru, she thanked him for saving her and introduced herself as Kade Sakura. Without thinking, Natsuru blurted out his real name, and Sakura pointed out that he had the same name as her childhood friend. Natsuru felt a rush of happiness that she considered him her friend but quickly started panicking because he had given away his real name. Sakura then asked him to accompany her to the roof, and when they got there, she confessed that she hadn't been able to stop thinking about him since the first day she saw him. This made Natsuru smile like he had just won the lottery. After her confession, Sakura turned to face him and boldly asked if he would like to go out with her. Natsuru just stood there, stunned, until his heart started pounding like a galloping horse. Afraid he might say something stupid, he excused himself and ran to find Akane, who had been watching them from the staircase. Once he was safely behind the closed door, Natsuru started freaking out and asked Akane what he should do. Since she was in her Kämpfer form, she pulled out her gun and said she'd take Sakura out. Natsuru immediately used his body to block the door, insisting he would go back to Sakura himself. Akane told him to do the stupid dance and get it over with. Feeling dejected, Natsuru went back to the roof and made a fool of himself dancing, only to realize it was Shizuku standing there instead of Sakura. When he asked where Sakura was, Shizuku told him she had left a minute ago. Natsuru, the oblivious idiot, didn't think it was strange that he hadn't seen her leave. Shizuku then called him by his real name, which surprised him. She told him not to freak out and revealed she was also a Kämpfer before showing him her red bracelet, and transforming right before his eyes. Akane quickly joined Natsuru as he stupidly asked Shizuku if she had been the one who attacked them in the library. Shizuku kindly answered him and admitted that she had, but only stopped because she didn't want to be late for class. They were soon interrupted by Shizuku's messenger, who warned them not to underestimate her. Shizuku revealed that she had gotten the doll from Sakura, which made Natsuru realize that everyone who received a doll from Sakura became a Kämpfer. Suddenly, Shizuku attacked them, forcing them to run into the school building. She was right on their heels and soon cornered them. Deciding to stop running and face her, Natsuru shot a fireball at Shizuku, but she easily sliced it in half and tried to attack again. Natsuru told Akane to keep Shizuku busy while he came up with a plan to take her down. Akane did as he asked, and just when it seemed like she was about to lose, the fire alarm went off, and the water sprinklers activated. This caught Shizuku off guard, allowing Akane to tackle her. However, when Akane tried to shoot her, Natsuru stopped her. Akane was furious that he didn't let her finish Shizuku off, but he explained that he did it to ensure Sakura would be safe. Shizuku agreed to stay away from Sakura if they let her go. Before leaving, she told them that she wanted to understand why Kämpfer fought. The next day, Akane met Natsuru outside the school gates and informed him that Shizuku wanted to see them. When they arrived at her office, Shizuku told them that she was transferring Natsuru to the girls' side of the school because news about his female self had spread like wildfire, and she didn't want to raise any suspicions. The following day, Natsuru started classes on the girls' side and was surprised to find that Akane was in his class. This made him wonder what kind of tricks Shizuku had up her sleeves. Just as Akane was about to suggest that Natsuru sit beside her, the remaining classmates trampled over her and crowded around Natsuru. The class representative introduced herself to Natsuru and told him he would be sitting beside her. While the class rep and another girl were talking to him, Sakura suddenly burst into the class and announced that Shizuku had appointed her as Natsuru's guide. She then dragged him out of the classroom. Once they were far enough away, Sakura admitted that she had lied about being appointed as his guide because she wanted to spend time alone with him. She then hugged him and looked up at him with puppy dog eyes, declaring her love for him. In that moment, Natsuru noticed his bracelet glowing, so he ran away from her because he didn't want her to discover his secret. In his panicked state, Natsuru dashed to the roof, but to his surprise, he didn't change back into a boy. When he noticed Akane had followed him, he thanked her for helping him. She grabbed his collar and scolded him, saying none of this would have happened if he hadn't followed the boyfriend stealing Sakura. She also told him that the next time his bracelet glowed, he should run to the library, as it was the only place where boys and girls could be together during lunch. During lunch, all his classmates stared at him like he was a shiny new toy until the class rep and her sidekick came to talk to him about a photo shoot. While they were discussing, Akane, a representative of the school paper, showed up to take Natsuru to the press club for an interview. At the press club, she tried to get him to reveal secrets about himself, but Natsuru resisted. Later on, back in class, the class rep made Natsuru take pictures and sign autographs for students while they collected money from them. After a few hours of this, Natsuru managed to escape and went home, where he complained to Harakiri about his troubles as a girl. While they were talking, the doorbell rang, and when he opened the door, he saw that it was Akane, who had brought some cake. He invited her in, and as they were eating the cake, Natsuru kept talking about Sakura, which annoyed Akane. Harakiri, who was chilling in the trash can with the black bunny, told her not to be annoyed because it wasn't Natsuru's fault that he was so dense. The next day at school, Natsuru's class rep and her friends tried to rope him into another one of their schemes, but Sakura stepped in and saved him from their clutches. She took him to the cafeteria, and while they were eating, Shizuku joined them. Sakura, thinking they didn't know each other, introduced Shizuku to Natsuru. Shizuku played along, saying she had heard about him from all the rumors going around, particularly one about him dating a boy with the same name. As soon as Sakura heard this, she bolted out of the cafeteria, leaving Natsuru to scold Shizuku for misleading her. Shizuku explained that she said all that to save him from getting into more trouble. Almost immediately, a group of girls crowded around him, demanding to know if what Shizuku had said was true. Natsuru couldn't answer because his bracelet began to glow. He managed to escape from the chaotic mob and made it to the library just in time to change back into a boy. Akane found him there and scolded him for letting Shizuku spread those rumors about him. In the middle of her reprimand, she accidentally fell on top of him. Before she could get up, Sakura found them and accused Natsuru of cheating on his female self. She then declared that she was going to take his female form away from him. The next day at school, Natsuru found himself deep in thought during class, trying to figure out how to patch things up with Sakura. He couldn't stop replaying her words from their chat at the library the day before. His train of thought was abruptly derailed when Higashida popped up and asked why he looked like his world was falling apart. Natsuru nearly jumped out of his skin, not having seen Higashida sneak up on him. Ignoring Natsuru's startled reaction, Higashida excitedly launched into a spiel about the upcoming school cultural festival. He was buzzing with excitement, especially since it was the one time of the year when everyone from both sides of the school could mix freely. Higashida was particularly psyched about the beauty contest, eagerly anticipating it now that one of the school's top 3 idols was set to compete. Natsuru was initially confused by Higashida's enthusiasm until he saw the school newspaper. He quickly grabbed the paper and rushed to Shizuku's office. By the time he got there, he had already changed into his female form. He then asked Shizuku why she was making him join the beauty contest. She replied that she was just giving the students what they wanted. Natsuru pointed out that she was only using him for her own benefit and begged her to reconsider his participation because he didn't like standing out. Shizuku said she would find a replacement for him on the condition that he made her feel good. Natsuru screamed in surprise, but it turned out that all she wanted was a massage, which he couldn't even do properly. Shizuku said he was a terrible masseuse, and Natsuru argued that it wasn't his fault her shoulders were so stiff. She explained it was because she had many responsibilities as a regular student and as the student council president. Natsuru told her to stop pretending because, as the student council president, she had more freedom to do as she pleased. Shizuku admitted that when she was a child, she wanted to become a comedian, but since she was bad at public speaking, she pushed those dreams aside. She then asked Natsuru to continue the massage, which he did. When Natsuru realized what he was doing, he quickly pulled back and asked why she had turned to face him in the first place. Shizuku ignored his question and thanked him for the massage. He then asked if he could back out of the competition. Instead of answering, she asked him to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he saw her trying to kiss him. Natsuru tried to escape, but she held on until Akane burst in with guns blazing. Shizuku instantly transformed and told Akane not to misunderstand. They were only discussing the beauty contest. Akane didn't buy it and accused Shizuku of taking advantage of Natsuru. Shizuku asked how Akane knew it wasn't consensual. Akane laughed, saying the day Natsuru made a move on a girl would be the day aliens invaded Earth. Shizuku insisted that Natsuru had inappropriately touched her, which only made Akane angrier. As Akane prepared to fire, Shizuku walked past her, saying she had classes to attend. She told Natsuru she was looking forward to the contest. He reminded her about the promise to find a replacement. Shizuku said the deal was off since his partner had damaged her office and asked him to come in his male form next time. That evening at Natsuru's house, he and Akane told Harakiri Tora and the Black Bunny about Natsuru's participation in the beauty contest. The 2 stuffed animals burst into laughter and made sure to tease him at every opportunity, so Natsuru tossed them into the trash. Akane apologized for putting him in a difficult situation, but he reassured her it wasn't her fault since they were dealing with a cunning she-devil. He then asked what he could do for his performance, and Akane suggested singing a song. The plushies chimed in, saying he needed a costume and matching underwear, but Natsuru argued it was unnecessary because his underwear transformed with his body. When they teased him about fighting without underwear, Natsuru asked Akane to go shopping with him, and she agreed. That weekend, Natsuru met Akane in the city, surprising her by being in his female form. He explained he woke up like that. She suggested they shop for an outfit and matching underwear before practicing his singing at a karaoke place. At the lingerie store, Natsuru was overwhelmed by the variety of items and let Akane choose his outfit. While browsing, he bumped into Shizuku, who asked if he and Akane were on a date. Akane was about to agree, but Natsuru quickly clarified they were just shopping to crush Akane's fantasies. He then told Shizuku that because she was forcing him to join the contest, he had to spend money on things he didn't need. Out of the rare kindness of her cold heart, Shizuku offered to help Natsuru find something affordable since he was as poor as her ex. But Akane insisted on handling it herself. Shizuku noted it would be better if she helped because she and Akane had the same chest size, indirectly implying that Akane had mid-sized assets. Despite this, Akane persisted and chose a bra for Natsuru to try on. When they entered the changing room, Natsuru almost suffocated from how tight it was. Shizuku then burst in with a larger size and offered to help him put it on. Natsuru felt too embarrassed to expose his chest and refused her offer at first. Shizuku pointed out that he might not know how to wear it properly and even started unbuttoning her shirt to show him. I know guys what you are thinking about, so tell me in comment size of her, and this makes causing Natsuru to panic. Akane, who had been standing quietly like an NPC, then stepped in and said she would also demonstrate how to do it. Before Natsuru could stop them, both Shizuku and Akane took off their shirts, exposing themselves in the changing room. Outside the store, Shizuku teased Natsuru about how he acted in the store and asked where they were headed next. When Natsuru and Akane questioned if she planned to tag along to catch them off guard, Shizuku assured them she wasn't interested in a fight and mentioned she had a surprise for them. The surprise turned out to be Sakura, who Shizuku had called and invited to join them. At the karaoke place, Sakura thanked Shizuku for inviting her, but Shizuku pointed out that it was Natsuru's idea, so Sakura thanked him instead. She then placed the songbook on his lap, asking him to choose a song because she wanted to hear him sing. Shizuku added that she was excited to hear his cute voice, making Natsuru cringe. Sakura, not understanding why he was acting that way, suggested singing a duet with him, but Akane insisted she was the one who would sing with him. The two girls started bickering like an old married couple until Shizuku suggested they each perform a solo, and Natsuru would pick the best singer for a duet. The girls agreed, with Shizuku singing first, followed by Sakura and then Akane. As they sang, Natsuru's mind wandered to a postcard from Mikoto. In it, she mentioned singing to the locals, which reminded him of their karaoke sessions where she always tried to outsing Beyonce. His thoughts were interrupted when the girls finished singing and asked him to pick the best performer among them. However, not wanting to be the spark for a conflict, Natsuru declared that they were all so talented that he couldn't choose a favorite. Shizuku then excused herself to make a phone call, and Akane said she needed to use the restroom, leaving Natsuru alone with Sakura. Seizing the moment, Sakura asked Natsuru for his answer to her previous question. Unfortunately, his bracelet began blinking right then, signaling an imminent transformation. Natsuru quickly ran out of the room and held the door shut to keep Sakura from following him. She tried to pull it open, but he held firm until Shizuku found him in the hallway. He pleaded with her to transform to help him stay in his female form, and she obliged. Once certain he wouldn't revert, Natsuru released the door and fell to the floor just as Sakura managed to open it. At that moment, Akane returned from the bathroom and, seeing the scene, demanded to know what was going on. Back in the karaoke room, Akane reprimanded Sakura for trying to pressure Natsuru into making a decision when they were alone. Sakura shot back that Akane had no right to be jealous bitch, but Akane insisted she was only protecting Natsuru from her aggressive behavior because they were friends. After Akane's declaration, Sakura announced she would also join the beauty contest and confess her feelings for Natsuru on stage. Akane tried to suppress her jealousy, and then declared that she, too, would enter the contest to protect Natsuru from Sakura. Just as Natsuru was about to tell them they were overreacting, Shizuku said she would join the contest as well, explaining that as one of the school's top idols, she couldn't be left out now that they were participating. The next week was packed with preparations for the cultural festival. Natsuru's classmates organized plans to help him and Akane get ready for the beauty contest. Natsuru tried to decline their help, but they insisted, arguing that since they were competing against Shizuku and Sakura, they needed to be at their best. Before they knew what was happening, the girls had them out of their uniforms and into different outfits so Kai could take pictures. Once they were done, the class rep led them to a private changing room and asked them to change back into their uniforms. Inside the changing room, Akane became nervous because she didn't want to show Natsuru her body at this moment. He assured her that he was a gentleman and promised to look the other way while they changed clothes. While they changed clothes, they had no idea that they were being filmed through the flimsy curtains by Kai and the vice class rep, who planned to sell the footage to the fashion freaks at their school. Meanwhile, in the changing room, Natsuru asked Akane to try getting along with Sakura, but Akane scoffed and said she had no interest, making Natsuru wonder why she disliked Sakura so intensely. Just then, Sakura burst in and demanded to know why they were alone together. Akane quickly shielded Natsuru and told Sakura to stop acting like a crazy stalker. She argued there was nothing wrong with them sharing a changing room, but Sakura insisted on joining them. Akane reminded her that she wasn't part of their class, so she couldn't use the room, causing Sakura to accuse her of being a blocker. Frustrated, Akane bluntly told Sakura to stop acting desperate and go find someone else interested in her. Sakura insisted she could win Natsuru's heart, but Akane shot back that Natsuru wasn't interested in girls. This was too much for Sakura, who ran off in tears, leaving Akane to reassure Natsuru that she would always protect him. Later that evening, Natsuru ran into Sakura on his way home, but she ignored him and continued walking. Tired of the uncomfortable silence, he attempted to start a conversation. When she finally turned to face him, he saw that she had been crying. He immediately began to panic, but she assured him that it was because she had remembered something unpleasant. She also mentioned that her day had been ruined because Akane hadn't allowed her to spend time with female Natsuru. When she asked if Akane had romantic feelings for Natsuru, he explained that they were just friends and that Akane was only trying to protect her. He added that the female Natsuru was confused because she had never experienced a girl trying to get close to her before, and he asked Sakura to be patient. Even as he said it, he felt he sounded absurd, but Sakura thanked him for his kindness and said talking to him made her feel better. However, she also told him that she wasn't giving up and would do everything to win Natsuru over, refusing to lose to someone like him. After she left, Natsuru noticed Shizuku sitting on a fence nearby. When he asked why she was listening in on their conversation, she claimed she was concerned about Sakura. Natsuru told her to stop pretending to care, accusing her of being a deceitful person who had put them in a tough spot. He demanded to know what her real intentions were, but instead of giving a clear answer, she started lecturing him about children getting involved in matters beyond their understanding. The day of the festival had finally arrived, and while the students were having fun, Natsuru made his way to the changing room for the beauty contest. As soon as he opened the door, he was stunned to see Sakura in the middle of the room, dressed in a wedding gown. He was so captivated by her appearance that he started imagining their wedding until she asked if she looked nice. When he confirmed she did, she thanked him for the compliment. But before she could say more, Akane announced that contestants who were ready should go to the waiting room. Sakura accused Akane of trying to interfere again, and Akane reminded her that she had vowed to protect Natsuru from her. Sakura told Natsuru she would talk to him later, while Akane said she would be waiting. After the girls left, Natsuru sat down on a bench near the door. He nearly jumped out of his skin when Shizuku suddenly spoke up beside him. He asked why she enjoyed sneaking up on people, but she ignored his question and asked what he planned to do about Akane and Sakura. Natsuru admitted he had no idea, so Shizuku told him that if things got out of control, she would ensure both girls took responsibility for their actions. Then, Shizuku stood up and said she needed to change clothes, prompting Natsuru to get up to leave, even though she told him he could stay if he wanted. Later, the students gathered to watch the beauty contest, and Natsuru was the first contestant called to the stage. As he stepped out, the crowd erupted with excitement because of his stylish outfit. The MC asked him to perform, but he hadn't prepared anything, so he thought of using his fire magic. Just then, the MC announced that using fire was prohibited, leaving Natsuru standing there, unsure of what to do. At that moment, dolls were dropped into the audience, and the MC announced Sakura's entrance. As she gracefully walked onto the stage, the crowd cheered wildly. She stopped next to Natsuru and started talking, making him realize she had incorporated him into her act. The MC, taking on the role of narrator, added more context to their performance. After a while, Sakura leaned in to kiss Natsuru, and he almost kissed her back, but Akane interrupted just in time. Since Akane had appeared in her Kämpfer form, the MC announced that she had officially dropped out of the contest. Akane pointed her gun at Sakura, telling her to back off. Natsuru quickly shielded Sakura, trying to reason with Akane, but this only made her more annoyed, prompting her to start shooting. Reacting swiftly, Natsuru lifted Sakura in a bridal carry and dodged the bullets. The MC and the audience thought it was all part of the performance, so the MC added dramatic narration. After setting Sakura down, Natsuru told Akane that she was acting irrationally and urged her to put the gun away. Instead, Akane shot at his legs, causing him to fall onto her. The audience began cheering for them to kiss as they found themselves in a compromising position. Panicked, Akane pushed Natsuru off, tearing his clothes and exposing him briefly to the crowd. While everyone was distracted by Natsuru's accidental exposure, Akane moved closer to Sakura with her gun drawn. Just before she could fire, Shizuku intervened, knocking the gun out of Akane's hand with her blade and throwing her cape to cover Natsuru. Sakura continued with her act, incorporating Shizuku, but Akane refused to cooperate. She picked up her gun and fired at Shizuku, who skillfully deflected the bullets with her blade. Determined to stop the chaos, Shizuku quickly disarmed Akane and subdued all three of them with precise strikes from her blade, ending the chaotic scene and restoring order. Later, Natsuru woke up in the changing room, back in his usual form, and saw Shizuku sitting beside him. He asked if she had dressed him, but she just teased him, which made him wonder if she had orchestrated his participation in the contest to embarrass him. Shizuku reassured him that she intervened because she knew he couldn't have stopped Akane on his own. Feeling a bit ashamed, he thanked her for her help. She replied that his thanks weren't enough. Before he could ask what she meant, she leaned in and kissed him. After she pulled away, Natsuru sat frozen in shock for a few moments. Shizuku stood up and told him that the next time they kissed, it would be slower, but she warned him not to let Akane find out. When he naively asked why it had to be a secret, Shizuku asked if he was ready to face the consequences in another world. Meanwhile, Makoto exited the school building, grumbling about not being able to find Natsuru. She noticed a stuffed dog lying on the ground nearby and decided to take it home. The next morning, Natsuru had a dream where he was kissing Sakura, but she suddenly morphed into Shizuku, jolting him awake. Parakiri Tora, who had been sleeping next to him, complained that Natsuru had ruined the most erotic dream he'd ever had. Ignoring the crude plushie, Natsuru started tugging on its stuffing in frustration. He caught the scent of curry and looked out the window to see if it was coming from his neighbor's place. Just then, he heard a knock on his door. When he opened it, he was stunned to see Makoto standing there in nothing but an apron, holding a plate of food. She walked in, saying she couldn't find him at school the day before, so she came to his house instead. Natsuru asked how she had gotten in without a key, and she confessed to picking the lock. He then inquired about her missing clothes. Makoto glanced down at her apron and said she didn't bother with them because she wasn't sure if he wanted to eat the curry or her. Natsuru was shocked by her boldness, so he quickly took off his pajama shirt and handed it to her, trying to cover her up. Later that morning, while waiting at the bus stop, Natsuru didn't notice Akane watching them until Makoto pointed her out. Once Akane realized she had been spotted, she walked over. When Natsuru greeted Akane by name, Makoto asked how she was doing. Surprised, Natsuru asked if they knew each other, and Makoto explained that they used to be neighbors. Akane then asked Makoto how she knew Natsuru. Makoto said they had been friends since childhood and did everything together. When she mentioned that they had eaten breakfast together, Akane's face turned red with jealousy, and she quickly backed away, mumbling that she had somewhere else to be before running off. Seeing Akane's reaction, Makoto asked Natsuru if he was in a relationship with Akane, but he denied it, saying they were just friends. Still suspicious, she asked if the rumors about him being involved with the female Natsuru were true. Natsuru assured her that it was all just gossip and asked her not to believe everything she read. Finally, Makoto asked if he had any connection with Sakura. Instead of denying it, he blushed deeply. Teasing him about his crush on Sakura, Makoto said she would always be there to console him if Sakura rejected him. While they were talking, Natsuru's bracelet began to glow. He quickly made up an excuse and ran off before she could show him the stuffed dog she had found. After transforming, Natsuru made his way to school. Before he could reach the entrance, he was intercepted by the trio who saw him as their golden opportunity. They reminded him that the festival wasn't over and insisted he participate in their class activity. They then dragged him to their classroom, which had been set up as a maid cafe, and squeezed him into a very tight maid outfit. Natsuru grumbled that they were exploiting him for their own benefit, but they insisted it was for the class's success. As a maid, his job was to serve the customers, and his first customer was Higashida, who tried to persuade him to do a photo shoot. At that moment, Kiki appeared with a price list for photos of Natsuru, while the vice class rep handed him a cup of coffee. After Higashida took a sip, he spat it out and ran away because something unpleasant had been added to it. They then informed Natsuru that a VIP customer was coming in, someone who was paying a lot, and he had to attend to them. To his surprise, the VIP was Shizuku. After serving her coffee, she asked Natsuru to sit with her. He refused at first, but Shizuku complained that he wasn't attending to his master's needs, so the girls made him sit down. Alone with her, Shizuku revealed there was a new Kämpfer, though she hadn't seen them yet and didn't know if they were an ally or enemy. She also mentioned she was considering the theory that all the dolls Sakura distributed were messengers for the moderators. Natsuru argued that Sakura couldn't be the one creating new Kämpfer, but Shizuku said she wasn't dismissing the possibility just yet. Just as Shizuku finished mentioning that she had invited Sakura, Sakura walked into the cafe and immediately began gushing over Natsuru's outfit. She couldn't stop praising how perfect Natsuru looked, and Shizuku chimed in, suggesting he would be even more impressive if he could perform fire magic tricks, which made Natsuru wary of her motives. When the conversation shifted to the dolls, Sakura said she loved them for their unique designs. After some time, Shizuku told Sakura that since Natsuru was playing the role of their maid for the day, she could ask him to do anything. Sakura started contemplating what to request, but Shizuku interrupted, suggesting she ask for a kiss and even hinted at finding a private room, alluding to the kiss they shared in the dressing room earlier. Sakura leaned in to kiss Natsuru, but he quickly backed away and asked her to choose something else. Sakura agreed and asked him to spend the day with her instead. They enjoyed the festival, visiting various booths and trying out different games. After they got some ice cream, Sakura excused herself to talk to a friend. While Natsuru waited, he noticed a girl observing him closely. However, he didn't dwell on her for long because Sakura called to him from inside the haunted house. She grabbed his hand tightly, telling him not to let go, treating him as if he were easily scared. As they walked through the eerie hallways, someone started throwing objects at Natsuru, but he managed to dodge them all. When he finally identified the attacker, he noticed she was wearing a red bracelet and took off after her, leaving Sakura behind. The chase led him outside the school building, and when Natsuru caught up, the girl attacked him with a sword. As he dodged her strikes, she boasted about her numerous skills acquired from traveling the world, making escape impossible for him. Recognizing the girl as Mikoto, Natsuru tried to reason with her, but she ignored him. Just then, Akane appeared, saving Natsuru before Mikoto could land a critical hit. Akane told Mikoto that she would have to get through her first to reach Natsuru. She then dropped Natsuru and launched herself at Mikoto. In a desperate attempt to stop the fight, Natsuru used a fireball to separate them and pleaded with Mikoto to calm down. Mikoto was stunned that he knew her identity. Before she could respond, Shizuku arrived and used the chains on her dagger to bind Mikoto. She ordered Akane and Natsuru to return to their normal forms. They obeyed, and Mikoto fainted from the shock of realizing she had been fighting Natsuru all along. Later, all three of them stood before Shizuku in her office. Mikoto teased Natsuru for being a Kämpfer before asking Shizuku why she had stopped the fight when they were on opposite teams. Shizuku explained that they had called a temporary truce because there was something she needed to investigate. She then reminded Natsuru that he had left Sakura alone, so he went to find her and discovered her on the roof. Natsuru apologized for leaving her abruptly and explained that he had an urgent matter to attend to. Sakura told him that to make it up to her, he had to spend the night at her house. The next morning, Harakiri watched as Natsuru got dressed and asked if he was finally getting laid. Natsuru explained that Sakura had invited his female self to spend the night at her place. He asked why they were there, and they told him they were going to accompany him to Sakura's house. Realizing he couldn't convince them otherwise, he gave in, and the three of them set off together. As they walked to Sakura's place, Akane complained that Sakura wanted Natsuru to come alone to develop a plot with him. However, Natsuru was more interested in what Shizuku was planning. She told him there was something she needed to check out, and she could only do so at Sakura's house. When they arrived, Sakura wasn't thrilled to see Akane but didn't show it and welcomed them inside. They were surprised to see that her house was filled with more of those weird dolls. After offering them drinks, Sakura suggested they play a game. When she offered to demonstrate how it was played, Akane stopped her, saying there was no need. They began playing the game, and Akane and Shizuku ended up paired together, having to chew on a candy stick. Akane was reluctant, but Sakura insisted she couldn't back out. Akane placed the candy in her mouth, and Shizuku took the other end. They slowly munched on it until Shizuku pulled the candy down, kissing Akane when their lips met. After the kiss, Sakura wanted Natsuru to share a candy stick with her, but Akane insisted that they had to play by the rules and wait for their turn to be paired. In the next round, Natsuru was paired with Akane again. As they nibbled on the candy, Natsuru deliberately let it break so he wouldn't have to kiss her. Akane asked why, and he explained that it would be better for her to kiss someone she actually liked. They continued playing, but Sakura grew frustrated that she hadn't been paired with Natsuru. She tried to manipulate the game, but Akane caught on and reminded her about the rules. Frustrated, Sakura ended the game and led them to a room filled with her strange dolls. Natsuru and the girls didn't have the heart to tell her that her doll collection was a bit creepy, so they listened as she talked about them. Shizuku asked Sakura which doll was her favorite. Sakura picked up a charred-looking doll and shared the story of how her love for unusual dolls began. Just then, Mikoto interrupted, asking Natsuru why he wasn't at home. Mikoto then pulled out a large pot of curry from her backpack and invited everyone to eat. During the meal, Sakura asked if Natsuru was going to stay at her house overnight. Akane jumped in, saying that if he did, it would be an imposition on Sakura. Sakura retorted that Akane could leave if she wanted, but Akane argued that if she did, Sakura might take advantage of Natsuru. As they bickered, Shizuku dumped curry on Natsuru's head, causing Mikoto to angrily accuse him of wasting food. Shizuku suggested that Sakura take Natsuru to the bathroom to clean up. Sakura eagerly agreed and showed Natsuru the bathroom, pointing out where everything was before leaving him alone. Natsuru began to undress but hesitated, remembering he was still in his female form. He decided to transform back, but Sakura kept finding excuses to return, preventing him from changing. Realizing she was trying to see him naked, Natsuru reluctantly decided to shower in his female form. Tell in the comment, guys, why he is going in that from. While Natsuru was showering, he noticed Sakura had returned and was already undressing, so he quickly jumped into the bathtub to hide. He could hear Akane outside the bathroom trying to convince Sakura to leave, but she was being stubborn. Things escalated when Mikoto tried to enter the bathroom, prompting Sakura and Akane to team up and stop her. Meanwhile, Shizuku had returned to the doll room to take a closer look at the burnt lion doll. Later, once everyone except Shizuku was in pajamas, she asked who would have the honor of sleeping next to Natsuru. This sparked another argument among the girls, leading to Natsuru being assigned to sleep in the doll room. As he lay in bed, he couldn't help but think about how adorable Sakura had been all day before he drifted off to sleep. In the middle of the night, Natsuru woke up in his normal male form. He was about to change back when he heard someone enter the room. It was Sakura, who climbed into bed with him, happy that they were finally alone. She began running her hands down his back, and Natsuru tried to stop her from reaching his chest. Sakura noticed his hair was shorter and was about to ask about it when Akane burst in, firing her gun into the air. Natsuru begged Akane to stop, but she refused, declaring she would only stop when the sneaky girl was dead. Natsuru quickly transformed back to his female form to shield Sakura from the bullets, finding that she had fainted from shock. He attempted to reason with Akane, but she continued firing until she finally paused to speak. Before Akane could say anything, a purple-haired girl smashed through the window, introducing herself as Rika. She attacked with a weapon similar to Shizuku's blade. Natsuru and Akane tried to fend her off, but Rika easily dodged their attempts. Just then, Shizuku arrived and disarmed Rika with a swift move. Shizuku demanded answers, but Rika simply bid them farewell and escaped through the window. After Rika's departure, Natsuru noted that she wore a white bracelet. Shizuku cryptically remarked that they were on the move but offered no further explanation. Later, after Natsuru put Sakura to bed and apologized for involving her in their chaos, Shizuku arrived. She questioned Natsuru about what had transpired with Sakura before the attack. Natsuru reassured her that nothing had happened between them and then left the room. The following week, Shizuku asked Natsuru to go on a date with her. He was wary, suspecting she might have some hidden agenda, possibly related to the white Kämpfer who had attacked them at Sakura's house. Shizuku promised she had no such plans, but Natsuru remained doubtful. While they were talking, he noticed Misumi observing them. Before he could react, she dashed off. Natsuru worried she would spread rumors about them dating, but Shizuku told him to relax. Interestingly, as Misumi headed to the newsroom, she reconsidered what she had overheard and decided she must have misunderstood the situation. On the day of the date, Shizuku prepared bento boxes and freshened up before heading out to meet Natsuru. When they met, she commented on his early arrival, and he explained that he didn't want to get on her bad side. Ignoring his comment, Shizuku began walking, but when she saw him lagging behind, she asked him to walk beside her. Natsuru begrudgingly complied, remembering to keep up the facade. Shizuku suggested visiting the aquarium. As they watched the sharks, Natsuru was so preoccupied with thoughts of a possible attack that he didn't notice a shark approaching until it startled him. He stumbled into Shizuku, who teased him for being scared. Embarrassed, he denied it, not wanting to seem weak. They explored various tanks and admired different fish, but Natsuru couldn't help but think about how much more enjoyable the day would have been if he were there with Sakura instead. As they passed by the gift shop, Shizuku asked Natsuru to buy her a keepsake to remember their outing. Natsuru didn't understand why she needed one since he didn't see it as a real date, but he bought her something anyway. As they exited the aquarium, Shizuku took hold of Natsuru's hand. His first reaction was to pull away, but he reminded himself it was all part of the act and let her hold his hand. Natsuru asked if he should have remained in his male form, and Shizuku replied that if they were attacked, she could handle it on her own. After walking for a while, Natsuru's stomach growled, and Shizuku suggested they sit down to eat the lunch she had prepared. When they sat down, Shizuku playfully tried to feed Natsuru a piece of sausage but ended up falling on top of him. He quickly ate and asked her to get off. After lunch, Shizuku requested that Natsuru put his arm around her. He did so reluctantly, complaining that it made them look like a couple. Shizuku reassured him that it was fine and said he had to put up with her since his dream girl would never let him hold her like that. She then asked why he liked Sakura so much, and he admitted that he couldn't put his feelings into words. Shizuku agreed with him, saying that one couldn't truly know a person without dating them. Natsuru asked her to clarify, but she didn't respond, her thoughts drifting back to the incident at Sakura's house. After a moment, she shared her curiosity about the moderator's intentions, especially since they had sent the white Kämpfer after them. She expressed her frustration at being manipulated and voiced her desire to uncover the true reason behind their conflicts. Noticing Natsuru's silence, she looked over and saw he had fallen asleep. Later, Natsuru awoke from a dream where he had a girlfriend, only to realize he had been sleeping with his head on Shizuku's lap. He quickly pulled away, asking if she had done something to him. She pointed out that she had been asleep too, so it was impossible. She then suggested they head home. When they reached the fountain where they had first met that day, Shizuku asked if he wanted to walk her home. He declined, saying he needed to get back. As they talked, Mikoto suddenly appeared and kicked Natsuru in the face, sending him crashing into a wall. Dazed, Natsuru asked what her problem was. Mikoto angrily demanded to know why he had gone out with Shizuku without telling her. He tried to explain it wasn't a date, but Shizuku made things worse by saying she had enjoyed their time together. Natsuru begged Shizuku to tell Mikoto the truth, but Shizuku said she would only help him if he addressed her casually. Natsuru complied, but Shizuku still insisted that it had been a date, which made Mikoto even angrier. Natsuru insisted that it was all a plot to draw out the white Kämpfer, but Shizuku countered that she never told him that, making him realize she had tricked him into going on a date with her. After Shizuku walked away, Mikoto called Natsuru a two-timing jerk and punched him hard enough to send him flying into a wall. Later, in his room, Natsuru recounted the incident to Harakiri Tora, but instead of sympathy, the doll laughed at him, prompting Natsuru to throw it into the trash. Just as he tried to understand why Shizuku had tricked him, Akane barged into his room, demanding to know why he went on a date with Shizuku. Natsuru explained that he had been tricked and reminded her that the only person he liked was Sakura. Akane then asked if he were to go out with someone other than Sakura, who would it be? After thinking for a while, he told her he wouldn't mind being with her. Hearing this, Akane became so excited that she transformed into her Kämpfer form and started shooting up the place. When she finally stopped, she told him that since he went on a date with Shizuku, he had to go on one with her. She suggested they go to a pool or a beach since summer was around the corner and promised to make his jaw drop when he saw her in a swimsuit. The day of their date soon arrived, and Akane was very excited to spend the entire day and night with Natsuru. As she chatted about their plans, she realized the person responding to her was Shizuku. Akane jumped in surprise when she saw that Mikoto was also there and asked how they knew where to find them. Mikoto told her that there was no place on Earth where Natsuru could go that she wouldn't be able to find him, while Shizuku said it was a secret. Mikoto then told Natsuru to cheer up when they noticed he looked down and mentioned that they had brought along a special guest just for him. To Akane's annoyance, the special guest turned out to be Sakura, but Sakura was more interested in knowing where the female Natsuru was. Shizuku assured her that the female Natsuru would join them soon, and they all headed to the pool. At the pool, the girls looked stunning in their bikinis, but Natsuru only had eyes for Sakura. He complimented her, but she asked where the other Natsuru was. When he invited her to swim, she declined, saying she couldn't swim and preferred to stay with Shizuku. Akane and Mikoto, happy that Sakura turned him down, invited Natsuru to swim with them. However, they noticed he kept watching Sakura, so they left him alone and tried other activities. Later, they joined him on a recliner. Mikoto teased Akane, and Shizuku and Sakura joined them. Shizuku decided to tease Natsuru in front of Sakura, pressing her chest against his side. Jealous, Akane did the same, making Natsuru uncomfortable. Sakura cheered them on. Shizuku asked Natsuru to go with her to find the other Natsuru. Before leaving, they saw Sakura greeting 3 girls. When they returned, Natsuru had transformed into his female form and felt awkward in the swimsuit. Sakura, excited, asked her to teach her how to swim. Natsuru asked why she didn't ask the male Natsuru, and Sakura said he was a musclehead, causing Natsuru to facepalm. In the end, Natsuru took Sakura into the pool to teach her how to swim, but she clung to him tightly. Akane, feeling jealous, tried to join in, which led to an argument between the 2 girls with Natsuru stuck in the middle. Shizuku then intervened, saying they needed to leave for an errand. Natsuru gratefully followed her out of the pool. Shizuku asked him to pick something up for her but gave him incorrect directions. While trying to find his way, he inadvertently walked into a trap set by the girls who had greeted Sakura earlier. Surrounded, they introduced themselves as Sayaka, Ruka, and Hitomi, and mentioned that he had already met Rika. They revealed that the moderators had set everything up. Before they could elaborate, Akane fired a shot that narrowly missed Natsuru. He scolded her, saying that if she couldn't aim properly, she shouldn't use a gun. She insisted that the shot was meant to save him. The girls tried to step in, but Akane and Natsuru told them to stay out of it. The girls warned them not to underestimate their numbers. At that moment, Shizuku appeared and announced she had come to balance the fight. She confessed to using Natsuru as bait to draw them out, saying she had questions for them. Before she could continue, the magic-using girl fired a blinding beam at the ceiling. By the time their vision cleared, the white Kämpfer had vanished. Later that evening, Natsuru returned to his room after telling Sakura that the female Natsuru would come back when the fireworks began. Akane was about to scold him for this when their stuffed animals walked into the room soaking wet from a bath. Natsuru got so mad that he manually squeezed the water out of them and hung them up to dry. While they hung there, he asked them about the white Kämpfer and whether the moderators had contacted them recently, but they said they hadn't. As he was speaking, the phone in the room rang, and he took the call in Mikoto's room. Shizuku made a show of kissing a cup before handing it to Natsuru, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Her actions prompted the girls to ask what was going on between them, but he insisted they were misunderstanding the situation. Shizuku then showed them the keychain he had bought for her during their date and admitted they had kissed during the cultural festival. Mikoto immediately scolded Natsuru for keeping such important information from her. In response, Shizuku kissed him right in front of everyone. The shock of seeing the kiss caused Akane to faint, giving Sakura the opportunity to ask Natsuru to step outside with her because she had something to tell him. Once they were in the corridor, Sakura pinned Natsuru against the wall and asked him to watch the fireworks with her. Natsuru wondered if they should wait for the others, but Sakura insisted that she was all he needed. He reluctantly agreed and followed her away from the hotel, his vacant expression revealing he was under some sort of trance. Back in the girls' hotel room, Shizuku tried to wake Akane, but Akane, still half asleep, mistook her for Natsuru and attempted to kiss her. Realizing her mistake, she quickly pulled back but then decided that kissing Shizuku was like kissing Natsuru indirectly. She asked for a kiss, but with her eyes closed, she ended up kissing the black bunny instead. Upon realizing her error, she angrily tossed the bunny into the trash can just as Mikoto entered the room. Mikoto informed them that Sakura and Natsuru were missing from their rooms. Shizuku suggested they find them before the white Kämpfer could attack. Meanwhile, outside in a garden, Natsuru momentarily snapped out of his trance and wondered why Sakura was looking at him so intensely. When she asked if her gaze bothered him, he said it didn't. She then moved closer, took his hand, and, while he tried to process her unusual behavior, she placed her hand on his cheek and asked what Shizuku meant to him. Elsewhere, Shizuku, Mikoto, and Akane met in a crowd watching the fireworks display after unsuccessfully searching for Sakura and Natsuru. Shizuku suggested they split up, but Mikoto refused, saying that if any of them found Natsuru first, they might try to get to second base with him. Akane assured her that she wasn't like Shizuku, who had behaved like a delinquent when she kissed Natsuru in the room. This made Mikoto ask Shizuku why she was interested in a useless slob like Natsuru when she could have any guy she wanted. Shizuku admitted that she didn't usually care about guys but said something about Natsuru made her want to try harder for his attention. Akane then complained that both Shizuku and Mikoto had the upper hand, but when she remembered Natsuru had called her special, she started to smile like an idiot. Shizuku and Mikoto pressured her to explain what made her smile, and after hearing her story, they decided to split up. Back in the garden, Sakura asked Natsuru if he was in love with Shizuku, and he told her he wasn't. She begged him to make her fall for him because she didn't want Shizuku ruining her plans. Natsuru tried to refuse, but Sakura told him she would reward him if he did as she asked, then tried to kiss him. Suddenly, she pushed him away, causing him to transform just as Mikoto arrived to attack them. Natsuru snapped back to his senses as Mikoto demanded to know what he'd been doing with Sakura. He claimed he had no idea what she was talking about, insisting he was alone. Mikoto accused him of lying and turned to point Sakura out, but seeing no one, Natsuru told her she was probably imagining things. Just then, Akane appeared and began shooting at Natsuru, accusing him of sneaking around with Sakura behind her back. Natsuru couldn't understand why the girls had suddenly turned on him, but before he could explain, Shizuku held him at knife point. Later, they all returned to the hotel and, as they made their way to their rooms, they saw Sakura coming out of hers. She apologized for not keeping her promise to watch the fireworks with them, explaining that she had gotten lost after shopping. Natsuru, surprised to see her, asked if she had been in the garden with him earlier. When she confirmed it, he told the other girls that he had been telling the truth. Sakura then suggested they all go to the bathhouse together, and everyone agreed. Once Natsuru and Akane got back to their room, he placed the stuffed animals on his bed. Akane asked why he never tried to flirt with her, admitting she was jealous of the attention he gave to Sakura and the others. She then begged him to kiss her. Natsuru just stared at her, so she stood on her toes and tried to kiss him, but Harakiri Tora interrupted, asking Natsuru to turn on the TV. Moments later, the phone rang, and it was Shizuku, telling Natsuru to meet her and the others in the women's bath before hanging up. At the bathhouse, Natsuru tried not to look at the women around him, but Sakura sneaked up behind him and hugged him. As he struggled to get away, Mikoto, standing next to Akane, pulled his towel off. Mikoto then switched places with Sakura, and Akane groped his chest, causing him to struggle until he managed to escape and get into the same bath as Shizuku. Shizuku moved closer, pressing her chest against him, and asked what he had done with Sakura when they left the room. Natsuru's eyes suddenly became vacant, and before he could respond, Sakura joined them, prompting Shizuku to leave the bath. As Sakura watched Shizuku leave, she reminded Natsuru of his promise. When Akane and Mikoto entered the bath, they asked Sakura where Natsuru and Shizuku were, and she told them they had already left. Meanwhile, Natsuru went to Shizuku's room and began making advances on her. Confused by his sudden boldness, Shizuku asked why he had changed his mind. Natsuru told her to just accept his advances and stop resisting. Shizuku kissed him, placed his hand on her chest, and told him he was the first person she had agreed to be close with. However, she asked why he had come to her. Natsuru admitted that Sakura had put him up to it, which made Shizuku angry. She knocked him out, saying she didn't like that he was only interested in her because someone else told him to be. Meanwhile, in Sakura's room, she instructed the white Kämpfer that they needed to eliminate Shizuku and the others. The next morning, as they gathered in the hotel lobby, Akane told Natsuru that Shizuku had brought him to their room after he passed out in the hallway. Just then, Sakura and Shizuku arrived. As they began walking outside, Sakura grabbed Shizuku's shoulder and told her to swallow her pride. However, when Shizuku turned to face her, Sakura was nowhere near her. However, Shizuku suspected Sakura was hiding something, so she didn't believe her when she denied saying anything. A few days after they returned from their trip, Shizuku invited Natsuru to her house and showed him the burnt lion she had taken from Sakura's place. Natsuru asked why she had taken Sakura's cherished stuffed animal, but she ignored his question and slapped the lion to wake it up. Once the lion was awake, Shizuku commanded it to explain to Natsuru the reason Kämpfer were created and made to fight each other. The lion revealed that in a distant galaxy, two powerful forces were locked in an endless struggle for dominance. The moderators were the only ones who could intervene, decide that one among the Kämpfer warriors would determine which force would rule over the galaxy. Natsuru grabbed the lion, demanding more information, but it fell back asleep. Shizuku then suggested that Sakura might be connected to the moderators, but Natsuru refused to believe it. Realizing she needed to prove her point, Shizuku took him to her room and pushed him onto the bed. Natsuru asked why she was doing this, and she explained that she wanted to jog his memory of the night of the fireworks display. She kissed him, and the kiss brought back his memories. As they lay on her bed, Shizuku told him about a former Kämpfer who had died in battle. She wanted revenge for her friend's death and begged him to help her. After leaving Shizuku's house, Natsuru went to see Sakura to confront her and understand why she had done what she did. However, Sakura called him a dim-witted fool and blamed him for not following her instructions, which allowed Shizuku to become a problem. Natsuru stepped back, but she followed, expressing her disdain for boys before transforming him into his female form. She then urged him to live as a girl by her side and join her cause instead of opposing her. The next day at school, Akane, Mikoto, and Shizuku met at the bottom of the staircase leading to the roof. Each girl was surprised to see the others, as they each believed Natsuru had summoned them separately. When they reached the rooftop, it was empty, but Shizuku sensed an impending attack and alerted the others. They moved just in time to avoid a shot from one of the white Kämpfer. As they prepared for battle, Shizuku and the others demanded to know who was giving the orders. The white Kämpfer responded that they had to defeat them to find out, which they did. Before they could get any information, Natsuru attacked them. Akane and Shizuku tried to subdue him together, but Sakura intervened. Shizuku then asked what Sakura was, knowing she wasn't a typical Kämpfer. Sakura cryptically replied that they would never find out unless they defeated her, and before they could react, she incapacitated them. When they regained consciousness, they were chained. Sakura revealed that the white Kämpfer were created to eliminate them because their alliance was disrupting her plans. She explained that if Natsuru stayed a boy, their side would win, but if he remained a girl, she would win. This was why she convinced him to join her, knowing he would choose to stay a boy because he cared for all three of them. She kept them alive so Natsuru could eliminate them. As he approached with a fireball, he noticed Shizuku's keychain and snapped out of her control. Surprised, Sakura attempted to regain control over him. Natsuru faced her and declared that although he had feelings for her, he wouldn't side with her. Sakura, furious, attempted to strike the girls, but Shizuku broke free and intercepted her attack. In response, Sakura ordered the white Kämpfer to take them down. Shizuku and the others powered up, fending off the white Kämpfer as their messengers cheered them on. Seeing the tide turning against her, Sakura tried to hypnotize Natsuru again by kissing him, but he resisted and transformed back into his male form. Angrily, she slapped him. Noticing the commotion, the girls threw their weapons at Natsuru. Sakura then ordered her Kämpfer to retreat. After they left, the girls scolded Natsuru for attempting to kiss Sakura despite everything she had done. He pointed out that Sakura had fled, but they dismissed it, focusing their frustration on him instead. Natsuru, feeling cornered, explained that he was trying to break free from Sakura's influence. Shizuku and the others, understanding his intentions, finally calmed down. They regrouped, determined to find a way to stop Sakura and the white Kämpfer for good, while Natsuru vowed to support them and fight alongside them. A few months later on Christmas Eve, Natsuru woke up to find he had swapped bodies with Harakiri Tora. In a panic, he demanded that Harakiri find a way to switch them back. Harakiri, now in Natsuru's body, eagerly dressed up and went out to enjoy his newfound freedom. During his outing, he encountered other messengers who had also swapped bodies with their Kämpfer. They decided to experience their new human forms by going to a restaurant to eat, savoring the sensation of hunger for the first time. Meanwhile, Shizuku, Akane, and Mikoto, now inhabiting their messengers' bodies, gathered at Natsuru's house to brainstorm a plan to regain their original forms. Elsewhere, the messengers finished a hot pot meal and were about to leave without paying. The restaurant staff, refusing to let them go without settling the bill, forced them to perform a show for other customers. After their impromptu performance, they encountered Sakura, who invited them to a strange amusement park. As the messengers experienced various emotions and pains, Natsuru and the others felt these sensations as well, making them increasingly anxious about their body's activities. At the amusement park, the messengers in Sakura's body and others met Higasa, who introduced them to some dubious games, which the messengers thoroughly enjoyed. Following the games, the messenger in Sakura's body ran to a chapel and confessed feelings for several girls, including Natsuru's class rep, vice class rep, and Keed. Suddenly, the vice class rep and Keed, dressed in nun habits, appeared and declared that she must atone for her sins through labor. However, before they could rope her into their schemes, the other messengers crashed through the wall, declaring they were there to rescue her. Sakura, confused, asked why they would take such a risk for her. They responded that she was the only one who truly cared for them. Their heartfelt moment was interrupted by the class rep and her sidekick, who insisted that they wouldn't let Sakura go. The messengers charged, but Harakiri slipped on a rock and fell. When the others checked on him, he mentioned that he could actually feel pain. This revelation led them to take turns hitting each other out of curiosity and amusement. Later, they bid Sakura farewell and rode away on Santa's magical sleigh. In the end, it was revealed that the entire body swapping incident was part of a Christmas story being read to a child. After all guys, how much do you like this story? Tell me in the comments. So that's it for this video. Watch the following video, and I will see you in the next one.